Hey guys, Rob from Georgia here with you, aka VHS82 apostrophe with episode 5 in my long, short, but soon to be long running exercise in a deeper, closer look into the X-Files. We happen to be in season 2, episode 5 overall. This is the 29th episode to air on TV. Drops October 14th, 1994. Episode happens to take place in 1985 with a specific incident related to the overall structure narrative, which takes place in 1982. This one, Duane Barry, which is very, very tightly sort of closed in on with what will follow right after Ascension. In fact, this is the first time that the X-Files, this episode will end with "to be continued," and it's book ended by two very similar scenes that sort of play themselves out, which I find very fascinating. This is directed by Chris Carter, his directorial debut. He wrote it, he directed it, he basically did the whole stinking thing, and it is in an incredible episode. Ascension, which he did not direct, I almost kind of wish he would have just did that as well, although Ascension is a very good episode in its own right as well. But it is a direct continuation of this story here with Duane Barry, played by Steve Railsback. Oh my lord, I had notes I wrote down and they're way over there, but I'm trying to remember back. Let's see, his acting career, Steve Railsback, who plays Duane Barry, he goes all the way back. I wanna remember it was 1972, playing Billy the Kid in Escape of Billy the Kid, I think it was. But he has played everyone from let's see, he's played Manson from Helter Skelter, I think that was 76. I think in 2000 he played Ed Gein. Golly, there was something else. Sheriff Dwyer, I think that was his name, The Devil's Rejects. He had some scenes right next to Forsyth, which caught me completely off guard because, well, that movie's fully loaded with older actors anyways, actresses. Anyways, but I want to say, I'm going to get this wrong. You have to forgive me. I want to say 92 acting entries altogether. It's either 72 or 92. It's one or the other. Probably 92. What an illustrious career this guy has had. And what he does with Duane Barry is freaking outstanding. Okay, so the book-ended scenes. We begin in 1985, right? With a sort of a close-up on his house in Virginia. And he is, you could just tell as the camera rolls through the place that his life is not where it ought to be. We'll learn a lot more about Duane Barry as the episode rolls on. But his house, and we've seen this before, right? This is a great way to showcase someone's current position of their character, where they're at right now. And it's not a good place for Duane Barry. Although the outside of the house looks nice and everything, the inside sort of gives away where his character is. Kind of reminds you of the opening scenes of Lethal Weapon, just with Mel Gibson's character, his dog, and the trailer and everything. It's sort of kind of got that sort of vibe. Anyways, he is, the dog quickly gets spooked, jumps off the bed, and, which is funny, you see the dog take the direction, which is, I mean, it's not like painfully obvious, but it's still pretty cool. Actually, I get a kick out of that stuff. And he quickly slips into a nightmare, of being abducted. Apparently he has an earlier episode where he was somewhere. They don't get a lot into it, but he apparently has recollections of being, his first abduction was at the top of this small mountain. I want to say it was, I can't remember what state it was, probably still Virginia, but And so the nightmares persist, and so we find now, once the nightmare episode is over and the credits and all that, we get catch up with him. It's funny. I kind of gave myself a quick little chapter list here as I was just thinking a few minutes ago. You got abduction part 1. That's the nightmare sequence that I've just referred to. You got breakout, hostage negotiation, which probably takes up most of the episode, and grocery store, which is extremely intriguing in terms of the overall arc of the mythology of the episode, and abduction part 2, which is pretty terrifying, actually, and that will lead right off into Ascension, which is pretty cool. And so, we quickly, see where he's at in this mental asylum. He's like in a mental asylum, and he's being met with by doctor, psychologist, Dr. Hackai, I think that's how you say it. We also, by the way, see Krychek back in this episode, and his level of his insidious nature continues to just slowly but surely grow to a much greater effect in Ascension. I should have just did the 2 episodes together, but I want to go back and revisit that one again once I kind of thought my way through this a little bit. And so they're talking, him and the doctor are talking about medicine, and he just does not want to take it because of, what it does to what, the effect it has on him. And it's in that moment when the doctor turns around that he grabs a pen, I think a pen off the desk, something sharp, and quickly the scene escalates into a hostage crisis where he takes the doctor ultimately and will make his way out of the institution. Then we sort of jump to Mulder swimming, probably just at their, sanctioned place to exercise or whatever for the agents. Krychek catches up with him and tells him there's a hostage negotiation crisis going on, and which is weird to Mulder why he's being called into it. Well, the look on Mulder's face is priceless when Krychek mentions that the guy in question believes he was abducted by aliens, and of course, it's just the classic look Mulder gives. So they show up, and that is an interesting, it's too much to really get into. There's a lot that goes on, and it takes up most of the episode, but it is intriguing as Mulder accepts the assignment to try to talk this guy down, or at least keeping active on the phone so he doesn't shoot anyone. Unfortunately, there's a power outage, which it begs the question. We already know Krychek has his hands in the cookie jar, and we know there's an ever-growing arc of conspiracy, and those who have set themselves against the work of Mulder's work, and of course Scully. One wonders if this power outage wasn't orchestrated by the government in order to create chaos. Really, it almost seems like this is a moment to set Mulder up for an easy, well, now we can just remove him from the scene through the legality of screwing up as an agent or something. It almost kind of has that weird vibe. But in light of the outage, Duane does react, and he's at a travel agency. He is trying to search for the location of where he was abducted. He's got the good doctor with him. He's got several other hostages, a couple women and a guy. And in the moment of being frightened out of his senses, he fires off his weapon, thinking he's firing off at perhaps alien entities. He puts a round in one of the guys that's his hostage. Well, the guy's going to die. This allows Mulder and another agent to dress up as emergency medcare workers, right? And the one guy does have experience in this, so they gain quick entrance. Well, there is a switch of hostages, Mulder for the guy. Mulder continues his conversation with Duane, which goes completely against the regs of what had been set out, the parameters of what he is supposed to do. But of course, he finds himself believing this guy until, of course, before he actually goes in there to help with this person who's taken a round, he's able to reach out to Scully, who does some research and quickly finds out that Duane Barry, back in '82, in an accident, was shot in the head, which is, I can't remember the guy's name, but it's related back to an earlier event in history. I learned about this in psychology, actually, and it was in our textbook. But the guy who got a metal rod right through his brain, the effect of, apparently he was turned into a pathological liar and just couldn't control things. And so the idea here is that Duane Barry is not what Mulder thinks he is, or is he? It's some interesting move with the story, the mythology, and the arc, and things are going to just suddenly have themselves flipped on their head by the end of this thing, which is great. So it continues on to the point where Mulder's able to get him to release the girls, which, in case it's funny, the one girl stops, she sort of looks at Duane and she says, "I believe you." And then they make the exit out of there, and then it's just the good doctor, Mulder, and this guy. Ultimately, Mulder makes a mistake, and for clarification's sake, tries to just make sure this guy, Duane, is telling the truth. Duane, of course, starts to come unglued, and all Mulder can do is do what he was told to do, and that is get the guy to move back closer to the door, which he does by just reminding him that he forgot to lock the door, that the door is unlocked, which means anyone can come in, and Duane bites on it and heads to the door, in which case the snipers get a clear shot and take Duane down, although he does not die. So we catch up with him in the hospital, and either right before or after, we also catch up with Scully. Now, he's been in the hospital. Mulder gets called to the hospital by the one FBI agent. No, I don't think she's at. I think she is Agent. Trying to think of. CCH Pounder plays Agent Lucy. Can't think of her last name. And she's at the hospital, and she calls Mulder, and he thinks to get yelled at. She tells him that, one of the things that Duane told Mulder was that he had implants. I think in his sinus cavity. Mulder's were drilled through in the alien experiments. He's got something lodged in his belly. And so these things were actually removed during the operation. And so she just relates to Mulder, beyond her ability and scope to understand what it all means. He actually was telling the truth in terms of having things inside of him. This evidence gets relayed to Scully, who, after talking to Mulder, to have somebody look at it more closely, find that there is a microscopic imprint on one of the metal implants. Well, the one great scene towards the end of the episode is she's in the grocery store, right? And the laser that reads the barcodes, right? As the girl wraps up her paying for her stuff, Scully waits for her as she's cashing a drawer out. She walks away, and she pulls the metal implant out and runs it by the bar scanner, which just sends the whole thing just crazy. And of course, she makes her exit out of that place pretty quick. And so it becomes horribly, very, almost nightmarishly Duane Barry is telling the truth, at least in part. But what really is happening, or what has happened to Duane Barry? Well, he wakes up in the hospital, and he ultimately escapes the hospital. Somehow, it's never answered, and I don't even think it's answered in Ascension, actually, but somehow Duane Barry shows up outside of, Scully is either at Mulder's place or her own place. I think she's at her own place, but she's calling, she's got to be at her own place, because she's calling Mulder and leaving a message on his machine, and in the midst of leaving the message, she hears something, looks out, she undoes the blinds to the window, it's raining outside. Duane Barry's outside the window looking in. Next thing you know, he hears the crashing sound of glass and everything. By the time the police show up, seemingly, Scully's been dragged out the window. Hence, Abduction Part 2. And that's why our episode to be continued. There might be a little bit more scenes with Mulder. I think there's a little bit more scene with Mulder listening to the tape. Scully's message. And, of course, we find, Mulder just left with a sense of loss. Where is Scully? What is really going on with Duane Barry? And how do we find this, perhaps, a lunatic? So it's a great episode. It is Yeah, I already mentioned that stuff. I think it's quite an achievement by Chris Carter to come in on such a pivotal episode and basically just hit it out of the park, and writing it as well. I love Ascension. I think Ascension is great. And maybe Ascension is great because Chris Carter set it up and it was easy to push it forward for the next guy. But I almost wonder how it would have been if Chris would have followed up his own. But he'll go on to direct a few more episodes in the canon of X-Files, as well as, I forgot that he directed I Want to Believe, the second film, which has really grown on me over the years. I really do appreciate that film and what it was attempting to be, although I know it did not have many fans at the time. So anyways, Duane Barry, absolutely achievement. It was recognized for award after award. The cinematography, Bartlett, the approval ratings when it dropped were awesome. It's just been looked at as just as an achievement of X-Files episodes. One of the great ones, and it is. And Railsback, man, Stephen Railsback, man, just freaking takes Duane Barry out of the roof, man. It's freaking awesome. So anyways, let's just wrap it up there, I guess. Duane Barry, to be continued. So the next episode, of course, is Ascension, and we'll follow the rest of the story arc, and we'll just see how deep this mythology begins to be, I guess. So anyways, shout out to my Bulldogs for trampling all over the Seminoles yesterday, 63-3. It's unfortunate one team sort of opted out, and yet one opted in, and unfortunately that's the result you get. And so a lot of comments being swayed back and forth on that one, but just proud my Bulldogs, in light of missing the playoffs, wrapped up the season the way you expect to wrap it up, in good order. Got my Bills on TV today, so I got family coming up for a belated Christmas dinner. Just so much sickness in the house. Much of it seems to have passed out, which is great. Got some reviews to do here momentarily, as well as I think I'm just going to go ahead and do a Christmas haul. I don't know if you can notice back there, but that's one of the big ones that my son gave me, was a nice little replica there of, Jason, part 3, I think, before he gets the mask broken in. Anyways, so there you go. Hope you all had a great Christmas, and I hope even more you have a great New Year's, and that this new year that is about to dawn upon us is better than the one that just preceded. As always, we end these things off with Go Bills.
This is not a dream. Not a dream.
We might be useful to you.